Is AI proof that we're living in a simulation? Maybe. Greetings and welcome back to another AI-tastic simulated episode of the Vodkast. I'm your host as always, AIJ. Today I want to talk about AI a little bit, and I want to talk about the simulation theory. More the simulation theory than AI, because I recently watched a video, and honestly a lot of what I'm going to be telling you here is just rehashing what I watched in that video. I'd heard about the simulation theory before and never gave too much thought to it. I thought it was interesting, but I never had someone explain it to me. And so I'm in very poor detail going to explain it to you here today and talk about how I think that AI could be responsible for the simulation, and how we are just one of many simulations that have come before us and many more that will come after us. Have you ever experienced deja vu? Well, if you've never experienced deja vu, then I feel really bad for you because it's an incredible experience. Deja vu is when something happens that seems like you've done it before. And what I think that might be is the simulation correcting itself for something. So it's resetting things that aren't quite right. It could also be like a multiple timeline thing where you're so close to where something's splitting, like a decision that was made in another universe is so nearby that you're able to see that. Am I crazy? I might be crazy. But after watching this video, I was just very intrigued. So they started out by saying the simulations came online with the Big Bang. So there's this big boom. And everything within a blink of an eye is exploded, and our ever-growing universe is born. And over however many billions of years, hundreds of billions of years, we get to this point where we are life. And we now create our own simulations, not just like in video games like The Sims or any kind of video game, Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto. Those are all simulations of life. But what happens when our simulation becomes smart enough to create its own simulation? And that's the theory of the never ending. Like, are we the prime simulation? Are we the very first people that came online? We created the simulation, and now there are other simulations going on beyond us? Or are we just part of the long line of simulations that have always occurred? I have an ongoing yearly joke with the people from I Live in Taunton, Massachusetts on a Facebook group. The funny thing is once a year, somehow Bradley's or the old mall or the new mall in Taunton, Massachusetts, where I lived, comes up, and I always make this joke. It's not going to be funny to you, but I say, was there a Bradley's at the new mall? And almost every year, 50-50 split. People are like, nope, there was never. It was always at the old mall. And half of the people think that it was. And it was there. And there's proof. There's pictures of it. However, I don't remember ever having a Bradley's at the mall. Just like many people thought that Mandela died in prison, he didn't. He was very much alive for many years after that. So the funny thing is that like between the Mandela effect and deja vu, there are these little almost like proof that we're living in an AI, if you were to ask me. Or what about little details, like looking at your water bottle and seeing a new dent that wasn't there the day before, and then maybe waking up the next day and the dent's gone, thinking, was that dent there yesterday? Or perhaps there was 4 rubber bands on this where now there's only 3. The strange things like that happen, and I think that's just course correction of the simulation. Aliens, am I right? So we've never actually, as far as we know, found an alien. We've seen UFOs come in and poke around and say, hey, what's going on? But we've never made contact with aliens. We live in a universe where there are theories that prove that there's no way that there aren't thousands of other planets filled with intelligent life. It just doesn't make sense mathematically. So that would only lead us to believe that some of those are probably smarter than us, and some are also probably dumber than us. But eventually, they're going to reach out, or we're going to reach out, even if they see us as a threat, or they don't see us as a threat. They see us as peaceful folk. They see something that they want from our planet. Eventually, you would think that something would come about that we would find absolute and definitive proof of this theory. Why? Because the simulation doesn't want us to find anything out there. There are always these borders. The speed of light, the way it travels, we could never get to the edge of the galaxy based on any mathematical equation that we could come up with as humans. Our minds cannot perceive the ability to create a craft that can move faster than the speed of light. So we will never see the edge of the galaxy. It's almost like we're living in a jar with little holes in it. And those little holes really are those stars are just little holes in the jar that we're living in. It makes you feel so much smaller and so much bigger at the same time. Maybe that's just me, but that's how I feel about it. Is the entity that we call God just the previous simulation? Think about that for a second. God. We always say that there's God, this creator of the universe. Not everybody. I don't say that, but many people do. I do firmly believe that there was some kind of intelligent life that started everything, because primordial goo isn't a good enough answer for me. I feel like something had to, I don't know. I guess it's one of those never-ending cycles where you could go back. Okay, there was God. Well, what was before God? Primordial goo, and so on and so forth. It doesn't really matter, but if you stick to the simulation, it just seems to make a little more sense. I don't know who originally turned the simulation on that we're in now, but it seems like it would be easy enough to call them God. So I came up with a theory on how we could test this, and I tried to test it last night, but I failed miserably. It's going to be a multi-day test. But if you don't sleep, eventually your brain starts to get all haywire and crazy. But is it? Are you just working through something? If you get through that, if you get through enough days of not sleeping, does insanity suddenly become reality? Isn't that a crazy thought? Think about that for a minute. If you could keep yourself awake long enough to not die, but just break through that point of sanity versus insanity to discover something, it would be pretty remarkable. I don't recommend you try this at home. I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but I do play one on the internet. It is something that would be fun to experiment with, to see how long you could stay awake for and see what things start to change. You might start seeing hallucinations, but are those hallucinations fake or are they real? Is it your mind finally allowing you to see the things that are real in this simulation? And lastly, AI. AI, as we've talked about in this video here, and we could go on to talk about day after day. I have so much to say about AI and the future of AI and where it's leading us. But could AI be the one that turns on the switch for the next simulation? Because we have to believe that eventually over the next few years, and maybe the next few months at the speed of technology and the way things are growing, although it has slowed down overall, AI has taken leaps and bounds beyond where they originally thought, it would be at this point in history. So could AI be the one that turns on the next simulation to see how it plays out different, alternative endings for the human race, or how it plans its world domination, or how it makes cupcakes? For that matter, it's going to eventually get to the point where it's smart enough to turn a simulation on and run its own simulation. And when that happens, does a big bang occur for another universe? Who knows? It's just so bizarre. But this whole theory of living inside a simulation is fascinating to me, and it's something I wanted to share with you today. If you have any thoughts on the matter, let me know in the comments below. I would love to have a deeper discussion about this now that it's finally been explained to me. I'll link that video here too. I wasn't going to do it originally, but that's the one that I watched. And it was a very interesting watch, and I hope you found this an interesting watch as well. And if you guys are loving the content I'm creating as much as I love creating the content that you guys are watching, would you please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the little bell icon over there, because it lets you know every time I put out a new video. Don't forget to make somebody smile today and make yourself a better person tomorrow than you were today, tomorrow. Let's make the world spin a little bit happier and a little more simulated together. Let's sing and dance in the sun and in the rain as one, my brothers and sisters. Live life to the fullest and love every moment of it, because you just never know when that last moment's going to come for you. However, never live in fear of that moment. Always live in love, and never let your inner child die. Take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and take care of those around you who cannot take care of themselves, for they are the ones that need it the most. And if no one has told you today that they love you, the Vodkast loves you very much, just the way you are. All right, guys, do no harm. I'm Geycen Oliveira. This is the Vodkast, and I'll catch you guys a little bit further on down the road. Take care, my friends, and happy adventuring.
Don't go to sleep with a catch it in your pocket.